Call this meeting back to order.
Want to get it out. Get it to the people.
Back to order means you have to stop. So, number 4, nothing to rise and report from the closed meeting. Consent agenda, can I have a motion to approve this? Moved, Director Jones, Howard's, Harris. So that will bring us to business arising from the minutes. Have you got something?
I usually do.
Right. Wait a minute.
Sorry, I'm trying to catch up. So I think the question on. Legal. No, I can't find it. No, sorry, it's okay. This is just me catching up on the late editions. That's what all those.
We'll move right along. Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Number 7, staff reports on other business. 7.1, CAO verbal update.
Hi, everyone. Heather Paul, SLRD, CAO. Just a couple of updates today. The first one is regarding notice on title for 1543 Sea to Sky Highway 99, which was deferred from June 11th, 2025 EAD committee meeting. Just more of a heads up because there was a 30-day deferral, so an expectation for it to be here today. In order to meet the notice requirements for that, it wouldn't make the timeline for today's meeting, so you'll see it in September. Just a heads up. The next item is just an item about a current EOC that's Emergency Operations Center that's open at the SLRD and some wildfire, just a wildfire that's in the surrounding areas. Currently, the only out of control wildfire is near the SLRD, and it's K70783, which BC Wildfire Service has a lot of information online. Great resource for public information. The Eisman Creek wildfire. It's located 20 kilometers south of the SLRD boundary of Electoral B, inside the Thompson-Nicola Regional District, near 14 Mile, and the Alalu, and I'm not going to say Lalawisen Creek Fire Service Road. After a brief closure of Highway 12, I think it was on July 12th between Lillooet and Lytton, the highway has reopened and did reopen on July 2nd. So it was a very brief closure. Fire growth has been upslope away from Highway 12 and is expanding to the east. As of July 8th, the size was 242 hectares. There is no immediate threat to the SLRD communities at this time. TNRD and Lytton First Nations do have a small number of properties on evacuation order and alert. As you can tell, that is updates from our protective services. So they are constantly aligned with neighboring regional districts and municipalities when incidents like these happen to keep an eye on it, on the safety and support that we can provide. The SLRD has 15 properties on evacuation alert, not around fires, related to the June 18th debris flood event in the Pool Creek and Pemberton Portage Road area of Electoral C. This debris flood was caused by the rapid emptying of a glacier lake on Place Glacier, which caused the surge of water to flow down Place Creek and flood water channels at the valley bottom. These initial flood waters have since receded and receded quite quickly. It was best case scenario in not the best scenario. You will remember Place Glacier because of the EOC that was activated last year for a similar incident. The SLRD EOC is currently working with the subject matter experts to assess the current flood and landslide hazard risk. An aerial assessment was done on Friday, conducted on the 4th, and a ground assessment was conducted yesterday. The SLRD is going to reassess the ongoing evacuation alert once the subject matter experts report on their findings, which will be within the next couple of weeks. The report will also help inform the SLRD's long-term approach to the specific hazard. The evacuation alert in the EOC is still open and operating because the funds will come from a task and from the province to make those evaluations, the helicopter rides, the ground assessments, et cetera. And what they're looking at was there was a substantial investment to realign the creek that was pushed over and drastically moved last year, and they're making sure that those berms are still existing and working, and that there wasn't any considerable damage from this one. The community members are advised and to continue to use caution in the area, including the backcountry, and to avoid streambacks and water channels. This is a potential for increased sediment and streamback instability in these areas. We know that as I said, it will be an ongoing threat, and so a long-term approach to this hazard is being discussed. And that is everything. There is an expectation possibly after the results of yesterday's ground assessment that the evacuation alert will be lifted shortly. It really depends on the results of that.
Thank you. Questions?
I've seen numerous photos of the creek, and there was a lot of erosion damage done. The berms seem to have held up, well, they did hold up, but like you say, this is gonna be an annual event. So those berms, in my mind, they need to be bigger and better, because if we get a larger snowpack, we're gonna have more water coming down next year, or in years to come. So we need to make sure that deflection berm and all that stuff is made to withstand whatever comes down. The other thing too, where that water now comes out through Pool Creek, under the bridge and then into the Birkenhead. That is quite, and that's a fish bearing stream, obviously. So I don't know how much DFO is gonna be involved, but there's a lot of material that the bed of that creek has come up. So that bridge could be impacted the next time, right? And it did clean up within, I'd say 2 days, because I went and, watched the water. It was like chocolate milk the first day, and then the next day it just got better and better. But yeah, it absolutely has to be made to withstand whatever's coming, because it will be coming. So, thanks.
What do we need to do, or is there anything we can do?
Well, I think our staff is definitely on top of this. I've talked to them, so yeah, they're doing a good job, and they're trying to get the province to do their job, so that's the good thing.
So,
Nothing you said is new.
Pardon me?
Nothing you have said is new to me, and staff are
Yeah.
having those conversations.
Yeah. so there's nothing you need. Okay, thank you. No,
Okay.
receive that report, please.
Motion to receive, yep.
Second. Those Paris. We have select funds information report, and a comment with some interesting areas.
I missed that. Maybe.
Anything you need to say, just or you just respond to questions?
I'll just say good morning, and if you have any questions, then
Yes,
ask away.
Thank you. Any questions for them?
Very good.
A is good, B,
We're talking about our select funds at this point, hey?
yeah,
I just was wondering if, like at the last meeting, we sort of started, we've had this trend for a little while. Where we're getting some requests from the First Nations and we're looking at the general select fund. And I'm just wondering if you want to just keep that in mind for the budget process for next year. And I know that needs to be mentioned ahead of time, so please mention, something for staff to think about. As
Okay.
far as area B questions. No, I have no questions for the area B select, thank you.
area C,
No, good.
okay.
Yeah.
I've got 13 questions. No, I'm fine, area D is fine, so I'll move to, I guess we just receive this.
Okay.
No, right, proposed. Nobody, motion carries. Colin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now we'll go to request for decision notice on title construction contrary to building bylaw regulations. Area C. Jay. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jay McEwen. I'm the Chief Building Official here at the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. With me is Laura Starr, Planning and Building Clerk. Just as a reminder, notice on title or Section 57 of the Community Charter was provided to local governments by the province of British Columbia as a tool to administer and enforce the BC Building Code and local building bylaws. A notice on title serves as a public warning to potential buyers, creditors, or other stakeholders that the property may be in breach of bylaws or regulations. It also encourages voluntary compliance with bylaws and regulations to reduce risk to the local government. Once the notice on title has been filed, it can be removed once the non-compliance is brought back into compliance. The property owner has the opportunity to speak today. The property owner must be on the property title or an agent authorization must be provided. Request for decision. I am happy to answer any questions the committee may have about our work.
Okay. Comments, questions? Right.
So how long has this been going on for?
Through the chair, the stop work order specific to this request for decision was posted on November 7th, 2023.
And this was on what building?
Specific to a new outbuilding meant to shelter a sawmill. And then later related to the construction of a greenhouse that was existing on the property as well.
So nothing to do with the residents or any other buildings?
Not specifically, no.
And how much would it take to bring these into compliance?
Through the chair per construction estimate, I'm not wholly sure. It would at this point would be a building permit application for each building, ensuring that they're compliant with Area C zoning bylaw, adhering to spatial setbacks and design drawings and review by staff to ensure compliance with the building code.
So in my mind, the greenhouse portion of it, having a greenhouse on your property seems like a smart thing to do. The sawmill part of it, depending on what you're doing, that also is, it's either a temporary mill put in or a permanent one, so I'd like to know. Temporary or permanent? Pardon me?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what's going on.
Okay, is it possible to have the,
It's just gonna come to that. I noticed that we have the
yeah,
property owners with us and I'll ask Mr. Stratton, is there anything you would like to?
Yes, I have Maria here who summarized it probably better than I can express it, so she's gonna speak for me if that's okay. We've sort of done a summary of where we're at with the situation and see if we can get it resolved.
So, I'm sorry, could
My name is Maria,
Maria?
and thank you so much, Jay and Laura and everyone for your consideration of the circumstances that occurred between the dates in the report. So I can answer the question specifically.
Excuse me, just to, Andrew.
Yeah, just through the chair.
Yes.
Based on notice on titles, we only allow property owners to speak to the notice of title unless there's been special authorization.
Sorry, we don't have, through the chair, we don't have any authorization. Sorry, Mary, we don't know who you are.
Okay, is the verbal authorization of the owner here present sufficient? It's not a written correspondence. He's clearly giving consent for me to speak.
Andrew, I need your advice on that.
Yeah, I'll defer to Director Needham, Director of Planning in regards to such authorizations.
Yeah.
My understanding through the legislation is the property owner.
That's the same as my understanding.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Stratton, you have to speak yourself.
All right, well, we're talking about a mill that it is a temporary structure as was indicated, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been built on lock blocks specifically so that it can be dismantled and removed. That was an unfortunate situation that ultimately I got stuck with this and needed to protect it. We have, in addition to that, a developing farm application that we're working on right now, and the sawmill. Some of the fencing, the sawmill was actually used to build a fairly expensive fence between my neighbor and I, which are having basically a dispute, which is where these things stem from. Originally, when Jay showed up, he was implying that we were potentially using the mill for commercial operations. That's absolutely not the fact. I believe that was probably explained to him through the complaint from my neighbor, who continues to complain about everything. It's not used for commercial, it's used for building fence and potentially animal enclosures and things in the future. What I have to say about the mill, I'm open to looking at something if we want. What I was considering is more a temporary use permit. I've been through the process and I have begun the permit application process actually. Was a little bit unclear. We're looking for a design drawing, which is fine, but it appears to be looking for structural engineering as well. Obviously, it can get a little complicated. The mill structure is put together so that it can have a long span with logs to be put onto it, and then it can be taken apart at the same time. So in any case, I started into that process and got a little bit bogged down, but I guess when I started to review the documents, additionally, the concerns that was raised was with regards to my greenhouse. Also, I'm sure this was probably come up from my neighbor, which is why I'm so frustrated with this situation. My greenhouse has been on that location. It has no concrete tied to the ground. It's been on that location for about 20 years, if not more than 15, less than 20. And this was brought to my attention 12 years later. So it's a little bit frustrating. It is where I grow my food in the summertime, and I don't know how you would possibly get a building permit on a greenhouse structure. It's basically a hoop house with steel beams, rafters, whatever you want to call them. It would be impossible to have a structural engineer on that. They'd have to decide on the strength of the steel, whether it's, there would be, I just don't have the information on that from back 15 years ago. Sorry. Yeah, so it bogged me down. I did come back. I responded to this with a lengthy letter that I don't know who ended up receiving. I was trying to get it to the various parties that might be involved in this process. Because if the greenhouse is going to be a non-starter because I can't get a building permit, going to apply for the expense of a mill permit when you're going to put a section 57 on my property anyways for an existing greenhouse, it doesn't seem to be a great financial adventure for me. But ultimately I want to be conforming. That is my goal here. At the same time as I have a problem with a neighbor that has been going on for 5 or 6 years, basically since he purchased the property next door to me, which is actually over the property setback by an inch. That's how close he's living to me. And he complains about everything. I've had absolutely every governing agency, police, fire department, everyone sent to my house. Generally, it's deemed we don't have an issue. This one, we do have an issue on. But ultimately, you're policing a complaint person that is just endlessly complaining on my property, and at some stage I need to push back with regards to that because I know he's the one complaining and creating this, but regardless, at this point it's not really relevant. I suppose the point is how do we proceed forward? How do we proceed forward without a section 57 if ultimately that's where we're going to go? I guess that's nothing I can do about that at this stage. I cannot pull a permit together that quickly. I need to understand what the actual requirements are for a permit for an existing greenhouse. I wouldn't know where to begin structurally to deal with that. I'm a general contractor. I built a lot of the larger things in Pemberton here as well. I'm actually building the new school at new French school Yeah, so I am familiar with what's required to build this stuff. I'm not building it shoddily, I'm building it so it can be dismantled. That was the intent when I put it there. The intent was not to file for a permit. That would be more to file for a potentially a temporary use permit. Or a timeline on when the mill needed to be removed and the structure could be removed at the same time. I've got a lot of time and energy into this, actually attempting to pull permits. The cloud-based system was a bit challenging to get into in the first place. I came here, I was helped by Laura, and we're getting through the process, but ultimately here, I don't know if I guess I'm asking for potentially some more time and a clearer understanding for what we're actually looking for, because at this point, I don't know that I can live up to what they're looking for with regards to the greenhouse, for example, and if we can't, then we just go away and you can do what you need to do, and I'll have a section 57 on my property, I guess. I guess that's kind of all I have. I am definitely motivated to, I've been trying forever to bring my neighbor on board with me. The fence that I built on the property line was, it's extensive and it's nice and it's on my side of the property line by this much, because he would not participate in a fence that was being built, even though it's to his benefit, because he's the one that's right against my property as close as he can possibly be. My house is 500-meter back, but anyways, I'm getting kicked here to shut up, so I will stop talking now.
Thank you. Thank you. George Mac.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with the property. Fence that he has built is, I'm sure, have you seen it? Yes,
Sure,
no?
yeah, I've seen them driven by and seen it, yeah.
It's very, very professionally done. It's very nice. And as far as the greenhouse goes, like I say, it's been there almost as long as I've lived here, so I don't see how that can be a problem. Like, I know what he's talking about as far as having the neighbor complain about anything and everything. So I don't think that sadly this will ever end. But I would suggest that what we do is you're working with planning and building now. And that we give this gentleman a 3-month extension on this to get everything in place. And is that?
That would be great, and especially if I can have a clear idea of what exactly it is
You have to
I'm
do.
dealing with here.
Yeah,
because
well,
it gets-
obviously you should know exactly what you have to do to
It would be.
accomplish it.
It would be helpful. My letter that I wrote when I responded to this was quite clear with the questions that I didn't really understand, and with my neighbor dispute, it's not really your issue, but it's definitely in my. And I was simply said, just get a permit. Well, here we are, because I don't know how to get a permit for a house that's not attached to the ground. We've done a lot, we do a lot of donating. It's a developing farm, and we donate to the food bank, and anyways. You know.
Mr. McKeown.
Through the chair, Mr. Stratton's correct, staff doesn't get involved in neighbor disputes. However, the subject here is contravention of the building bylaw. During my site visit, when I posted the stop work order, I was greeted on Mr. Stratton's property by his staff. We have a duty to protect staff and enforce safe workplace rules as well. So if there's staff using these facilities, coming and going from these buildings, they're entitled to a safe workplace. So that's another one of staff's concerns about. If there are other people rather than just homeowners accessing things on private property, there is a duty there to protect the public from unsafe buildings, potentially unsafe buildings, I should say. So
He's not staff.
The subject buildings are eligible for building permits. We do issue building permits for greenhouses all throughout the SLRD, even in areas near Whistler with extreme snow loads. It is a possibility. Through every electoral area in the last 4 years, we've issued at least one in each area for folks who choose to grow their own food in a greenhouse environment. It's not impossible. It doesn't necessarily need to be cost intensive, and if, as the homeowner is instructed, is familiar with the construction industry and the requirements for it, it shouldn't be a bridge too far to actually push across the building permit application for these subject buildings if he does intend to keep them. Temporary or not, they're still subject to building permits under the SRD's building bylaw. As staff, this is fairly old, and opportunity has been given to the homeowners to apply for building permits, and we haven't seen any forward movement until recently, until notification of our request for decision coming forward. Staff still requests that section 57 be placed on the title at this time, and then the homeowner is afforded all the time to put together an application to have the notice and title removed.
Right,
Okay, I'd like to make that motion that I said to give the homeowner here 3 months to get everything in place with our two departments. And if at that time things aren't in place, then we move forward with a section 57. That's my motion.
that's the motion, second. Your second?
Yep.
There is. Okay. Any other comments? No. Call the question, in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Can I ask a question? When did the bylaws take place for something like a greenhouse, with that being there for 15 years? Has the bylaw been created since then? Is this potentially grandfathered in?
I see, I went to the able to shaking my head there. Did you comment?
This is really more of a building permit related issue,
It is.
so I'll let the chief building official speak to it.
Through the chair, no, this isn't. This would not be grandfathered. All subject buildings such as this have always been captured by the SOD's building bylaw for as long as we've had a building bylaw.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and then we'll move on to 7.44.
Come in and see if we can streamline it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, note on the construction content of building bylaw regulations, Walden in area C.
Through the chair, happy to answer any questions related to the request for decision, the report presented.
Director Mack.
So this is related to the building of a garage,
Through the chair, yes,
nothing to do with the residents.
correct.
And how far along are we with this?
Through the chair, to the best of my knowledge, this is an older one. The garage was issued a building permit. They went ahead and built most of it without calling for any inspections. Contractors were changed at some point when in 2023. To the best of my memory, and I apologize if that's wrong. I conducted a site visit at that time, instructed the new contractor and registered professionals on what we require to get them caught back up into a current standing of compliance with us in the permit process. Never heard from them again. We reached out a number of times. The contractor said that they were disengaged. Never heard from the homeowner. I personally never heard from the homeowner. We mailed them a number of times. Laura, maybe you can speak to the responses that we got from them.
Did you contact the homeowner?
Through the chair.
Yeah.
Yes, so the homeowner was contacted initially first 2024 with an email urging them to extend and complete their permit. They were contacted a second time on February 19th, 2025 via email and registered letter, again urging them to extend the permit and complete it. And I did not receive a response.
Okay, same thing with this one. I know this individual, and there's no excuse for this, but other than the fact that this individual works in camp all year round, so he's not home a lot, but because it's not the residence and he's not living in the garage, or nobody is, I think that we need to do the same thing, do a 3-month extension on this and send him another registered letter and tell him that if he doesn't get this thing up to speed within that time frame, then there'll be a section 57 put on the property. Anyways, I just.
Through the chair, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll withhold my comment, go ahead.
The building permit's expired. The applicant would need to reapply and then go through quite an extensive documentation trail, re-engaging registered professionals, some of which close to, or if not have recently retired. It would, 3 months, I don't think would be an adequate time period for them to be able to get caught up. Given the fact that we've been ignored in all of our communication to them, staff doesn't foresee compliance anytime soon.
So would 6 months be enough time?
Not if he lives in camp 12 months a year.
Well, he's home on the weekends, I know that. So.
My comment on this is that we've been ignored. What is there to suggest that if we give him 6 months, 9 months, or a year, that he's going to pay any attention?
I have no idea.
Does he want, you know, we put a notice on title, then he knows we're serious, it's done, and he can choose then how he wants to proceed.
Yeah, the only thing is, like, we always say our number one priority is to get the person to comply, right? So I think that we need to make sure that we give them the time, like if we put a time limit on, you need to comply within X number. Then if you don't, then we will put a section 57 on. But I think that we need to just let them know that we are serious about this and you have this time frame in order to comply.
My comment to that is, I think it seems to me every time we get a notice on title request here, we're saying, give them more time. So maybe we need to take a look at what we're doing. Maybe we could suggest that at some point, you know, they've ignored a registered letter, they've ignored emails, they've ignored this. At some point, we include in that letter that if you haven't done it by such and such a time, then there will be something along those lines, but see you.
Hi, thank you. Reading the report, it reads to me that in the communications, they're told that the notice on title would be followed up if there's no action or and looks like the first one was November 1st, 2024, February 19th, 2025. So it reads to me as if the communications do say that this is the pathway, this is what will happen if we can't get a response from you. But I would be interested in confirming that through staff who have the correspondence.
Yeah, but when I read this, I didn't see any specific sort of comment about notice on title. We're urging them to comply. And we're suggesting they extend their permit for another 2 years and things like that. We're actually saying, if you don't, we're going to take this step.
Through the chair, yes, we do. It's included in the building permit language when the building permit is issued. It's also in the SRD's building bylaw. So their applicants and building permit holders are made aware of the consequences of not finishing building permits. We also made them aware in our correspondence to them on June 9th that this request for decision would be coming forward, and we did not receive a response. If I can address Director Mack's comments about making them aware and making them understand we're serious, that's all of our repeated letters to the homeowners over the last 2 years about these are the consequences if you don't finish your building permit in time or extend your building permit or get in touch with us. Anecdotally, I reached out half a dozen times to the contractor, as he's a busy contractor within the SLRD, looking for updates as to what the status with this was. It was at the time would have been a fairly easy step forward to get caught back up with us. Hey, are we going to get an excavator on site so I can take a look at one of those footings? Can we move this forward? I don't know. We don't work there anymore. So staff spent, again, a considerable amount of time, and we do spend a considerable amount of time making people aware of what the consequences are if they're not going to at least try to work with us before we get to a request for decision in front of the committee.
See, the only problem I have with this,
Did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that, you know, if delays are requested, what would be helpful for us in the resolution? Because it just takes a lot of time for us to prepare all the information, the mail outs, the correspondence. It would be great for us if we had just a resolution that the EAD that we're directing staff to put a notice on title, let's say in 6 months' time, if no permit is received within that time period, and getting clear direction that we can just move forward. Then we don't have to come back again and sit before you and do the mail outs and everything else. That would be very helpful for us.
that satisfies me.
That makes
The
sense.
thing, see, it's the problem, I guess, I'm like, you were talking to the contractor numerous times, but the contractor didn't work for that person anymore, so like, you know, what, they have no skin in the game sort of thing. I think it should have been, you should have been talking to the owner. Yeah, it's not the contractor. So anyways, but
We could, if we accept that suggestion.
yes,
Then what we've got here is staff saying to us, these are the things we've done.
yeah,
And they've been told that they will be coming to the committee and asking for notice on title. If we pass a resolution that says, go ahead, and we could put a 3 months or 6 months, put something on, some sort of time limit on there, or?
Unless a full building permit application.
Yeah,
is
unless,
received.
yeah, so then what you have is the authority to go ahead with the notice on title if you don't get what it is we're asking for.
in 6 months.
Well,
He just said 3 months isn't long enough, so 6 months.
do we need to specify a period of time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so within the resolution, it should include then the time limit. Fine. Director Mayor,
Just curious, all the communication was tried with registered letters and emails. Was there ever any phone contact with the individual property owner? Is that part of the process to try to actually talk to the property owner?
Through the chair, I do not directly try to contact people. I do know the last registered letter sent was unaccepted by the property owner. They chose not to take the letter from us.
They refused delivery of the letter. So, man, through the chair, we, during these actions and throughout building permit processes, we choose to keep almost all of our communications in writing. So we do have a written record so we can share it if there ever comes to a request for decision. So we have an accurate roadmap of how we got to where we got. So typically phoning people over and over again, looking to see where they're at with their building permit applications beyond staff capacity. I don't have time to call every homeowner to see where they're at and why they're not calling for inspections. Illustrating what I mentioned about staff's effort to contact this, that was staff trying to illustrate going above and beyond. Like, this is an easy slam dunk. Why aren't we doing this? Can we call for this? And me just reaching out because I happen to know the homeowner had the benefit of having a contractor that is consistently in touch with SRD building staff because of the volume of the work of it. So I had the opportunity to speak to him. Hey, what's up with the wall? About half a dozen times.
So final comment will make it, every one of these things, we've got a list that sometimes goes back 10 years even. of communications and non-compliance, refusal to, we even got refusal to accept a letter this time. And so it comes here, and if our resolution just says, you've got 3 months to get all this done, well, we've been giving them years to get it all done, and there's no hammer there. A resolution that says we're authorized to go ahead with a notice on title if you don't do this with it, that's a different message. And I'd be more comfortable with that, because I get a little uncomfortable with a number that come and we're saying, oh, let's give them more time, give them more time. Let's give them more time, but let them know that the hammer's there.
And I totally agree with that.
Okay,
So we give them 6 months to get this sorted out, and if they don't get it sorted out within 6 months, they get the notice on title automatically.
yeah, it doesn't come back to us,
No.
it's done.
Well, I'll second that motion.
Okay,
And I think the wording should say a complete building permit to the satisfaction of the chief building official.
Or until a building permit can be issued. Or a building permit, complete building, no, you're right, sorry, I apologize. Complete building permit application.
you have wording for that, Angela, please?
That staff defer filing a section 57 community charter notice on the land title office in order to allow the property owner more time to complete the building permit process. If a building permit application is not received from the property owner within 6 months, the building permit I have it that the building permit process, if not satisfactorily completed and received by staff, that we will file a notice on title registered against Strata Lot 19, District Lot 498, Lillooet District Strata Plan pursuant to the Community Charter, Section 57.
Thank you.
So I'll massage those words a little bit.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, we move on to notice on the construction contract of building bylaw regulation, class 38A. Yeah,
Happy to answer any questions regarding the report and request for decision.
do you have any comments or questions or?
Yeah, just a comment. This property never did get a building permit, correct?
Correct, through the tree.
So I'll go with the number one option.
I'll second that.
Oh, God.
By section 57 community charter to include the land title office with respect to the property. Property owner may apply to have the notice removed once the contravention has been resolved.
Okay. Do we need both facts?
Yes,
Yeah, can we move them together?
yes.
Okay, moving both of them, seconded.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments? More question in favor? Close motion carried. Thank you. And then we've got request for decision rezoning an OCP designation of Pond Road, Bergen Schoolhouse. Thank you very much, Jay, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Alex Chappell. I'm project manager for the SLRD, and today I wanted to talk to you about the Schoolhouse. After being directed by the board in September 2024 to continue with this project, we approached the new board for the Birkin Recreational and Cultural Society in January 2025, at which point they suggested they would like to continue with the project. The next stage was to talk to planning about the intended use that the society was proposing, at which point planning indicated that a zoning amendment and potential OCP redesignation was required, and that the fees associated with that would be up to $9,498. Any questions?
Yeah, so when I look at the breakdown of that number, we're using our money to pay ourselves to do all this. Seems kind of odd, but anyways, yeah. I mean, it has to be done, but, yeah, it just,
Yeah, but if staff are doing the work,
pardon me?
if our staff are doing the work.
Yeah.
They've got to be paid, so it's got to come from somewhere.
I understand it. It just seems that we're taking money out of one pocket and putting it in another.
Yeah, we are, we're taking money out of an account to pay our staff. How else could we do it?
I don't know. You explain it to me. It just seems odd, Tony, that, like, it just seems very odd that,
Well, in this circumstance, I guess we could bill whoever they are that runs this thing.
well, where do they get the money from, right?
I know it's their
Same
problem.
thing.
It's their problem. When they apply to you for a grant and you suggest it comes from amenities funds. You know, it's what do they say? 6 isn't too
Well,
great.
it's amenity funds already.
Yeah.
Just got a question. Why are we doing all this? So the SLRD has a lease, right?
We do, yes.
Is there a sublicense agreement with that association at all?
Right now, there's not. Part of this process would be to ensure that if they took over this lease, or part of the lease, I should say, that they would be able to continue with the work that they would like to continue with. Right now, if they wanted to take over the lease, they'd be left in a position where they wouldn't be able to. I apologize, I'm not a planner, but my understanding is they wouldn't be able to apply for a building permit for the intended use with the current zoning.
Could that not just happen with a sublicense agreement and not go through all this?
So the current zoning would not allow for that use even if they took over the land, the portion of the land tenure on that parcel, and they wouldn't be allowed to use it in that manner. So we have to do this so that they can restore the building and use it for historical purposes.
So it's all about the zoning.
Again, I apologize, I'm not a planner, but my understanding is that yes, the planning is critical to them being able to use the building in the way that they would like to use it in the future when they hopefully get their partial land lease approved by the province.
So if this were a private company and they were applying for rezoning, they would be paying the money. They would be paying for the rezoning application and so on.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, and so this is a community organization, which is how come we're suggesting that money comes from this source. Does that make sense to you, Director Mike?
No, but I'll move as requested.
All right, I'll second it.
I just one other comment or question. How old is this building? Do we know? 10 years, 50 years,
60, 70, 80 years old,
70, 80 years?
maybe more than that. It's a heritage building in that community.
Is it declared as a heritage building?
No, I don't believe so.
Is that something that we should consider? Because I know that affects what kind of building permit you need and all that kind of stuff. Do you know that?
I haven't been to the building recently. Last time I went there, it was in pretty rough condition. That was probably 10 years ago. I think it would probably take a lot to do a heritage designation. It would start to also limit the uses and limit the ability to do much in the way of renovation. Yeah, it's a fairly high bar to get a registered building.
Yeah, what happened in Britannia Beach, I mean, those buildings, were dangerous to go into, a couple of them, you know, and they're now, look at it now. So, you know, I wouldn't want to get into a situation of going through all this rezoning and then all of a sudden we find well, we can't even use it. You know, it's not safe or. Because you can do the renovations. Not cheap, but anyway, that's rezoning is the question before us right now. So it was moved, it was seconded. Any other questions or comments? I'll call the question, all in favour, opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
8. I meant to ask about this before the
Yeah.
we're gonna have a break for 5 minutes. Okay.
Perfectly good meeting.
So correspondence for action 8.1, this is a request for funding from the Ferry Creek Community Association for community events. I'm going to declare a conflict because I am a resident of Ferry Creek and the community events that this addresses are organised by my wife.
Right.
So. Thank you.
Okay, so looking at 8.1.
I'll move that.
Thank you.
Second.
Dr. Demare. Any opposed? Couldn't possibly be, seeing none, motion carried. Thank you. I'm gonna go to these concerts. It's just getting started.
Yeah, it disappeared.
Well, I could keep going. We could look at 8.2. No, can we wait?
Completely up to you.
Alrighty. I don't think there's anything controversial about 8.2. The Lillooet Music Society requests funding of 2,000 from electoral area B select funds towards programming for 2025-26 season. I'd like to move this.
I'll second.
Mayor, all in favor, motion carried. Now we're looking at
Comment?
a comment.
Yeah, I do follow that last presenter, Shred Kelly.
Some amazing performances. We're all the way up to 8.3 now, Chair Rainbow.
Oh, lovely, good. Are we doing 8.3 right
Yes,
now?
please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do we have a motion on the floor?
nope. You're
No,
sorry.
I'll move at $2,000 from Area C select funds goes towards this, so that's the gold,
Silver. Isn't it? Silver.
pardon me? No. Silver is $1,250, gold is $2,000.
No,
Right.
what's the title? 5,000, oh, I see. Oh, okay.
I will second that.
Okay, and the tickets that come with that go to staff that are put in a hat and,
Distributed at random.
pardon me?
Distributed at random.
Yes, yeah,
By lottery.
yeah, by lottery. Okay,
Second.
Seconded. Thomas, no, no question, all in favour? Opposed, motion carries. Decision on additional late business. I don't have any. We got,
Go fishing.
It's already.
yeah, let's play it.
Oh, I see.
You've got a,
Right,
Yes, if
okay,
you-
this is in on late business.
Yeah.
It's already on with them.
Yeah.
Apologies.
okay, so 10.1 correspondence for action, Pinecrest Lake Stewardship Society, electro fishing. I will move this $8,000 from Area D select funds.
May I ask a question?
Can I get it seconded first?
Sure.
Good.
I'll second it.
So
Sure, yeah.
Question.
So I read the letter and I looked up what it is and it's a little, it doesn't appear that they're using the Sea to Sky Invasive Species Council. Is that the plan?
They are. Once I got the letter, and I have to confess, I will confess, I was prompted by Vivian. I called Claude from the Sea to Sky Invasive Species Society. They're well aware of this.
Okay,
They've been working with Pinecrest Lake Society since 2018.
okay.
They're concerned about these goldfish. And very concerned. They're happy that something is happening, and they're in support of us supporting them.
Will they do the work, or is the society doing the work themselves?
There's a person in the community, I'm not sure if it's Pinecrest or Black Tusk, but a person in the community who is qualified in some way to do this electronic fishing stuff. So he's going to be doing the work, but the Invasive Species Society is involved.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? Call the question, all in favour, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. And then our last. Okay, 10.2. Oh, this is a verbal director's report. Part of funding approval process. I've been having some comments that come up in meetings. I've had some conversations with different directors. And I thought it would be useful for us to sort of let staff know what our questions are. If any of them can be answered right now, that would be great. And if not, we can perhaps request them to come back at a later time. What I don't want to get into is the sort of legal requirements about contribution agreements for fire departments and things like that. That is something that we will address at a later date. If I understood. Sorry, July. So that's a sort of a specific thing. We're getting some legal information and support on that. So what I was wanting to talk about today was when we pass a resolution, as we just did, what happens? What's the process? What's the timing? Is there anything we can do to help speed things up? We don't want people waiting 2.5, 3 months for something. But we do recognize that it can't be tomorrow, unless it can be tomorrow. And by that, I'd like to include in the conversation electronic transfer of funds, what the issues are surrounding that, what we could do, what we can't do, and so on. So, Colin, I'd like to ask you to come forward there because I'm sure we have some sort of questions for you. Is there anything anybody else would like to say, or?
Just confirming that in July, we'll be talking about the agreements specifically with some of the volunteer fire groups and contribution agreements around that. We will be looking at those agreements or a template and talking about how they're executed and what, just I wanted to confirm that with the CA.
Okay.
That's great.
We'll go to see that point right now.
Thanks. July is a presentation by SMS, and it is regarding the risks associated that have been flagged and have been brought up to this table in the past when it comes to funding fire groups that are not under the authority of the SLRD, and then how those risks can be mitigated through contribution agreements and what are the best things into the contribution agreement. And just putting that forward to understanding that.
Sure.
The overall funding process has been a conversation here, and one of the deliveries of the new senior policy analyst is to improve that with the priority of low barrier for the applicant and high transparency for anyone asking questions about funding. That will include also having that decision tree of when a contribution agreement is required and being very consistent in front of that. That is the plan, the wish of staff and the plan for the future. When it comes to EFTs, there have been discussions, do we go less electronic fund transfer?
Oh, good.
So kind of like how we're paid payroll.
Excellent.
The payroll payment is different than paying vendors, and there's a significant amount of security around paying vendors and the setup of the software. Instead of increasing the amount of pay runs we do for AP, it's every 2 weeks. And it depends really on availability and vacation, so that can stretch. It doesn't make sense to add more staff capacity. It makes sense, we can significantly cut the wait time by having electronic fund transfers, which will cut waiting for it to be signed and waiting for it to be snail mailed over to the person. It is on the work plan for this year, especially elevated due to the postal strike that happened. It just shows a more significant need for that. And what slows it down is simply staff capacity, IT response to cybersecurity attacks. Those are the kind of things that slow down those, but it is on the project and staff capacity has been allocated to it. And I believe Deputy Director here would speak passionately about that topic.
Let me just ask Director McAfee.
Yeah, just these contribution agreements, can they be done preemptively, like all the places that we deal with, like all these associations, fire departments, all these things, can we have those things ready to go ahead of time, so to speak, when we know these requests are coming in and they need a contribution? Can we have one already, like a generic one, put your name in it, look, and it's gone?
Thank you.
I don't want to get into what we're going to be dealing with in July, but that is, I think, that's a question we maybe try to answer.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a July question. That's a good question now. And it is the vision. We do as much as possible actually have them in advance. As much as possible, we have them ready in advance. It also depends on when they get it, how soon they sign it and get it back to us, which also delays it. There is the suggestion, do we have the check ready? Should they sign it? But that, you don't want a blank check you don't want a check unsigned in case it never happens and it accidentally goes out. You want to write a check that actually all the boxes have been ticked beforehand. So I absolutely agree. And the vision is, the province is very clear on this, where they have a template contribution agreement, and then they'll have a schedule of the actual details. And that simplifies the process. And that's the vision for the future. So it's really fast. Everything we have to say every time is there. And then there's just a schedule saying, this is the deliverables we agreed on. This is the payment we agreed on.
So let me use the example from Area D, the Upper Squamish group. And I'm not sure what their status is at the moment. I know there's some discussions around it, but could they sign a contribution agreement now? Knowing that I know there's going to be requests at some time in the future. So can we have a signed contribution agreement on file?
Are you talking about upper, like a fire society or?
Yeah,
the food council?
It's the Ashlew Foundation run this little fire group. They've got equipment, they have practices, they do all those kinds of things. And they want to move forward to be compliant with whatever the regulations are. Can they sign a contribution agreement now, anticipating that at some time in the future they will request funds?
Thank you. I think that will be best addressed in July. I will say that staff have been asked that question and directed that to legal.
Okay.
If there is a way to have a hold no harm, the blanket one, and that question is still pending.
Because then if that were in place and we passed a resolution here, then there's no hold up with the contribution agreement. We just move forward in the same with sending the check.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
And the difference really is between our theory and legal's recommendation.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Okay. I did.
Through the chair, I think right now we would usually wait until that resolution is passed until we enter into a contribution agreement. That being said, if any of the directors or board members are aware of a funding resolution that may be coming up, like it's helpful for you to let me know. And I can start working on that contribution agreement. I think a lot of times where we see the delay is that we're not being notified until it's passed as resolution, and then we're trying to put together a contribution agreement. And we're trying to fit that in our workload that we have on a day-to-day basis. And usually, especially with the fire agreements, like it goes to myself and to Mark Phillips, the Director of Protective Services, for review. So that is usually where the holdup is. But I think if, for example, this Squamish community group, if they have one coming up and you let me know, then we can at least start the process so that once that resolution is passed, there's essentially a template in place that we could then send out to be signed. And that would help speed things up.
That was short. If we get the electronic transfer thing in place as well. So my question about that is, what would we require from the receiving group, whatever that group is, to get fire from it, at least, like the one, is that fast, by the way?
Yeah.
May I ask that? Okay, so that one, what would
You have to watch the recording.
Through the chair, I can speak a bit to the electronic fund transfer process. We do have it on our work plan. There's an RFQ out right now for some improvements to the Unit 4 system that we have. The actual implementation of the payment isn't necessarily the difficult part. What we have to build is a robust process around receiving that information from suppliers. A big risk is when we get a request for a change of bank details and we have to vet that with the supplier to make sure that that's actually a legitimate request. And so that process is a difficult process to build out, and it is kind of what has caused the delay in implementing it. Once we had a process in place to kind of have all those checks and balances on a change of bank information, all we would require is the simple 3 codes for a bank, like the account, routing, and transit number. And then we would be able to issue payments. But there are, some internal processes that need to be worked out before we can move into that.
That's great. So once all that's done, all a society would have to do is provide those 3 pieces of information. The sort code and the account.
Yeah, they would provide those and we would enter it into our Unit 4 system. And we would have that on file, and then any payment going forward would just be an electronic fund transfer, and that would, save the mailing time and some processing time on our end as well. It's just that verification of banking changes, because that's a big one. And from other organizations where I've worked, I have seen that those requests do come in, and sometimes they can be fraudulent, and the last thing you want to do is send a big EFT to someone else's bank account, and now you're trying to chase that money down. So that's the big holdup right now, but hopefully we are gonna have a process in place soon.
Oh, that's great that we're moving forward, isn't it? So, sorry.
Yeah, just on that topic, with the BRVC, with all the various committees they got, on the request, they've always said that, mention which committee it goes to. So
In terms of
ETFs.
Yes, we could figure out something like that. We may have to email. I haven't been involved in the process enough to know if there's some sort of notification that we could attach to the payment to kind of mention what organization is for. That would have to be a manual process, but we could figure something out.
Okay, thank you.
It's
long awaited.
Any other comments? So the takeaway we could have from this, and at the moment, recognizing that things are going on, is that if we're talking to a group about the possibility of or that they are preparing a request for a grant, and I think we're pretty sure that there needs to be, or there could be, a contribution agreement, that we could get in touch with you before it ever gets onto an agenda, so that the process has started. That's something we can do at the moment, okay?
What I don't want to do is turn over the apple cart, because we're gonna redo all how this is done in a really clear way. Every time a request comes in, we try as much as we can to include finance so that they're aware. It's the requests that come in really quickly that are hard to meet. I will say the good news is that the Pemberton Valley Utilities what is it called, PVAS, what's the S?
Utilities.
Services Committee has a process already defined, and they recently redid it and they talked to all the nonprofits on how to make it as barrier-free. So I don't think it's going to be too difficult of one, so the turnaround could be quite positive. Because we'd be looking at that, at basing it on why reinvent the wheel. Having a heads, I think the biggest request would be having those requests in earlier than before, knowing that we always want to accommodate late minute requests as much as possible.
Yeah, I can see that the late requests and also some of our less organized little societies with different board members coming and going, there could be a bit more of a role for the area director to just, as when the request comes in, we can do a little bit of quality control checking on that as well. Same bank, same, board, like we could do a bit of screening to help make it smooth. Yeah.
Through the chair, I do think what Heather mentioned is having like a very thought out process of when we require contribution agreements would be helpful for everyone.
Yes.
I do think it's been a little difficult to predict when one's gonna be required in some instances, and if we had that out, then it would be easy for the directors to make note of that when they're talking about the initial funding agreement, and then we can add that into the resolution when it is passed. And then that way finance knows and everyone knows, and even the association receiving the funding would know because they could see it in the resolution.
Now, the comment on EVAs, is it not due to that tax requisition?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's,
So it's a bit different than built and select funds, so on and so forth.
Well, anyway, we're gonna
Yeah.
get something from staff,
Yeah.
and all kinds of things out, and the goal is to improve the process, to smooth things out, to make sure we're not duplicating start time and all that kind of stuff, which we're not interested in. We're just interested in the end result, which is going to be that our clients get their money quicker. We will have any of that. Hey. I don't think what's saying.
Move received.
Yeah, I'm just making sure that we just have the chance to say what they want to say, and we've got to move to receive. Second right there, all in favour, motion carries. Good, director's note is a motion, nothing. Number 12.
As of 12:30, I'd like to move this meeting be adjourned.
Second. All in favour?
So close. Well done.
It's not like 12:30, just a moment.
feels close to perfect.